What's up guys, KPlaysHere. So far in this wishlist series, we've been talking about how to give Hunting Horn some extra power and style without taking away from its secret mechanics. But we haven't really spoken much on the main thing you're actually doing with these mechanics. If you don't have the song buffs, all you really have is a long hammer with built-in noisemakers. So in this part, we'll be talking about those melodies that make Hunting Horn users a welcome sight in every hunting party. Unlike the last few parts, there actually isn't much history to speak of when it comes to songs. Aside from the second-gen games in Rise, we've been pretty much working with the exact same basic formula in every game. Every Hunting Horn gets 3 notes. The first is always white or purple by default. White for the easier but weaker early game songs, and purple for the stronger and more complex ones you see later on. The other 2 will be a combination of the 6 other note colors. If we just count what can show up on the late game purple note song list, these combos could give your horns 1 of 15 total song lists, made up about 39 to 40 possible songs. World and Iceboard made a few tweaks to certain buffs and added 6 new songs with the inclusion of the special echo note, bringing the total to 45, but other than that, the song selection has been surprisingly constant over the years. Rise and Sunbreak made the only other overhaul to the system since Portable 3rd, giving us a selection of any 3 songs in the game plus self-improvement per horn, instead of the usual pre-bundled song lists. If you didn't have Attack Up, you could technically add that with Beat of Resonance for a max of 5 total songs, but that's still lower than the range of 6 to 10 songs per Hunting Horn and Iceborne. The total selection of possible songs also shrunk considerably, from 45 all the way down to 27. A few of those were pretty solid new options, like the Sonic Barrier that gave us a one-hit Rocksteady Mantle on demand, or a handful of sharpness boosting songs that we and other Melee players greatly appreciated. Still, less options equals less options no matter how you spin it. So where does that leave us when putting together a song system for the Dream Hunting Horn? Well, to start things off, I think it might be best to return to the classic 15 song lists. As much as I like Rise's fully unique song list, it may be hard to do the same thing with more complex older mechanics. The predetermined note sets make it easier to balance your buffing options, and if we're going to bring proper note combos back for queuing songs, having a fully freestyle song list could get messy. That said, the streamlining approach of Rise's redesign did highlight a few problems that need to be addressed in the old version of the song system. The first is that since the song selection has barely changed for over a decade, there are a few places where things are a bit dated. I mean, just off the top of my head, there are 2 song lists with multiple slots filled with the exact same song. 4 different song lists all have the same copy-pasted trio of wind resistance, defense up, and stamina songs. How often do you run into a monster that uses both water and dragon element? If the answer is rarely to never, why does the yellow light blue note set have both those resistance songs? And while we're on this list, have you ever noticed that we only have paralysis negated and nothing for the other statuses? Well, nothing except for all ailments negated, that is, which makes you immune to all of them, so even if they did exist, they'd be all redundant. I really could keep going, but the short version of this rant is that the song selection could definitely do with a bit of tidying up at some point. Just cutting things out like Rise did though obviously isn't the way to go if we want to keep all our buffing options. So what we'll do instead here is group together similar buffs and combine them to one coverall effect. The 7 different element resisting songs, for example, could just be Element Resist, a buff that negates elemental blights and give you extra defense against all 5 elements. We could avoid cases like the Kirin Horn and Whirl that way, where the song list and the weapon matched up terribly. You either want to use the Thunder weapon on a Thunder weak monster, or the Thunder Resist song to defend against a Thunder using monster. Never both. This replacing without removing approach will give situation specific songs like this stronger and more widely usable effects, which in turn would give some much needed love to the less popular song lists out there. Ideally, there'd be a reason to use all 15 in one way or another, and to do that, each set has to be more or less equally valuable. My next few changes will be geared towards doing just that. Speaking of added songs, most of the ones added in Rise should definitely be included in any future selection. Making space by combining similar old ones would clear the way for these new ones, but honestly, why stop there? We could have tool use Drain Reduce become Item Boost, a buff for increasing the effects and durations of consumables and hunting tools if they come back. Attaching Spare Shot and Load Up effects to the Sharpness Use Reduced and Sharpness Extension songs respectively could give gunners a hand. KO Boost, Part Damage Increase, Charging Speed Boost. The possibilities are really endless. But I'll pause the creativity here just so I can show off some of my revised list as we go without getting too out of hand. On the topic of adding new things though, I did mention that I'd be swapping out the Echo Note mechanic for something of my own making in the last part. One thing I liked about the most recent game is the fact that songs with instant effects like healing and sonic waves became more useful with the new quicker recitals. These effects didn't really mesh well with the typical method of queuing and playing songs because that process could throw off your timing for getting the effect right when you actually needed it. You want to use these effects more frequently and actively than the usual passive buffs, making them a pretty neat alternative way to use songs that I like to keep in my Dream version. For that, I'd be adding a new recital that uses my Echo Meter mechanic, the Echoing Tone. This would be a very fast recital that would empty out the notes on your staff and take a small chunk of your built up Echo Meter. Each note color would correspond to a different effect, and the more notes of that color you have, the stronger the effect would be. Red is a small sharpening effect that recovers more sharpness with more notes. Blue would be a cleanse of all negative status effects, and you get a short window of immunity that increases with extra notes. Green would be a heal. More notes would recover more health. This would replace healing songs in the regular song selection because it's far better to be able to heal with a quick move like this than input a note combo and go through a full recital. Yellow would still be sonic waves and keep the quick sound burst with the sonic bomb effect, but the echoing tone version would deal more damage and KO with more notes. Orange would give a sonic barrier buff for protection against one hit. More notes would further reduce the damage you take when you tank that hit. Lastly, and probably my favorite idea for this mechanic, light blue would be lullaby. This would be a sound burst that applies exhaust and sleeps on contact. It'd be pretty neat to have the ability to use music to soothe savage beasts before giving them a rude awakening. And since Insect Leg can apply poison, paralysis, and blast status with Kinsect powders, we can give Hunting Horn the final missing built-in status. With these, every Hunting Horn would have 2 more actively usable effects to throw out on top of your normal buffs. Having these special abilities on hand would also affect your playstyle. For example, green and orange would be great for brute forcing your way through fights, while yellow and light blue would be better for controlling and slowly wearing down monsters. When it comes to the old Echo Note songs, I'd move speed and evasion and health regen to the normal song list. Remove the Echo Wave attacking songs since they're pretty much built into the base moveset of my dream version already, and fold the stamina and element boosting Echo Note songs into the normal song variations. Now with this added layer to song mechanics making even your specific note colors important, we come to another small issue with the old style song system. I feel like we've all had moments where we passed up on an awesome visual design or a really good set of stats because the song list just didn't keep up with that hot streak. Or maybe it wasn't even necessarily a bad list, you just preferred that you had something else instead. Why not have the option to avoid that letdown? To do that, I'd add a mechanic I call tuning, based on Frontier's ability to use 2 different note sets during a hunt. For my version though, you do this in the weapon upgrading menu at the blacksmith instead, similar to how you can feed your Kinsect or swap out parts on your bowgun for customization. For Hunting Horn though, you'd be adjusting the pitch of your weapon, giving you the limited ability to change your song list by swapping the color of one of your notes. This one note at a time catch is a limiting factor, since it'd make it so that a few song lists won't be accessible. So hypothetically speaking, blue and green could become blue and orange, or yellow and green, but never red and orange. This is how I'm attempting to avoid the weird phenomenon where you get the freedom of choice, but somehow it results in less variety because everyone just picks the same few things. The 2 other times we were able to swap song lists, with the Rampage line in Rise and the Safi line in Iceborne, chances are you'd only see a tiny amount of what's actually available. In a perfect world with this tuning feature, any given horn would no longer be stuck with one specific song list, and when it comes to optimizing, you wouldn't be stuck seeing the same few lists either. It'd be more of a playstyle personalizing feature than a min-maxing thing. Lastly, we have to talk about the gamut in the room. As soon as I mentioned customizing notes, I'm sure a lot of you thought to yourselves, oh, so we're just going to be throwing red notes on everything for attack up? So much for variety. And that's a fair response. Everyone wants a damage boost, and because of that, the songs become an infamous variety killer. If a Hunting Horn or a song list doesn't have it, chances are it's not going to be seen very much, unless there's a situation where some specific utility song ends up arguably as valuable as 15 to 20% more damage for a full team. Unfortunately though, those cases are pretty few and far between. More recently, Element Up has been able to compete with Attack Up sometimes, but even when it does, it's usually very close, and in any case, that just shifts the situation from 1 outlier to 2 outliers. It'd be nice to see the song list without these songs be used more often, but I don't think any amount of rearranging, adding, or condensing buffs can really make a change so long as they exist. If we want to make that happen, the answer is obvious: get rid of them. No Attack Up or Element Up means nothing, throwing off the relative value of all song lists. However, a drastic change like that would weaken Hunting Horn in the bigger picture when you consider what it can contribute to teammates. We don't want to completely take away the ability to make others stronger, so instead we'll do the opposite. Instead of a few horns or no horns getting offensive buffs, they all get offensive buffs.
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
World added a personal attack boost to self-improvement, and Rise's Beat of Resonance and Inferno Melody gave Hunting Horn a universal access to attack boosting songs, so it's not like this would be totally out of the realm of possibility in the first place. With my dream version of Hunting Horn, we'd be trading self-improvement for just improvement attack or improvement element, depending on your horn of choice. No selfishness here, we're in it for everyone. On top of the usual anti-bouncing and movement speed increasing effects for the Hunting Horn user themselves, both versions of the default song would now also give out a damage boost to everyone. 10% when your horns still have white notes, and 20% when you get access to purple. Making damage increases a baked-in ability would do a few positive things for us. First, it would make it so that a song list value wouldn't have the over-centralizing "does it have attack up or not" question attached to it. Instead, this would be purely based on the usefulness of the utility effects you have access to. Second, it would justify the way that Hunting Horn has a lower damage potential as an entire weapon class to compensate for a team boosting effect that not all Hunting Horns even have. Third, and possibly most important, that second thing doesn't even have to be true. As with the most recent games, monster stats scale up depending on if you're fighting alone, as a pair, or in a 3 or 4 player group. We could have Hunting Horn's power scale in the opposite direction so that the less players you have with you, the more of the improvement songs would boost your damage. That way you keep the usual multiplayer balance power in a full group, be a little stronger to carry the more weight in 2 3-man parties, and become an absolute powerhouse on your own. In other words, justice for solo Hunting Horn players. With that though, we'd have a solid new song mechanic to pair with our new hypothetical moveset. Every song list should be an attractive option, utility is stronger, and you can play to the beat of your own music just how you'd like. Exactly how it should be. It's been really fun theory crafting things to make everything mesh together well. And with the amount of thought I put into this purely hypothetical redesign, well, I don't need to check Capcom. If you see this, just throw it in the game and we'll call it even. But seeing as that's unlikely to ever happen, the most I can hope for is that Wilds checked off at least a few boxes on my wishlist. It was weirdly ironic that Rise actually checked off pretty much everything I asked for in my wishlist video before that game dropped, but all the other things that were added and removed left me with a pretty mixed opinion at the end. Hunting Horn is definitely due for some much needed updates, but not so much that the spirit of the weapon is forgotten. I think my version does this rather well, and I'd love to hear if you guys feel the same way, or if you don't. As always, the feedback is always appreciated. Let me know what you all think of the project so far. In the next video, I decided I'm going to do a little bonus part on where I'd like to see Hunting Horn fit in among all the other weapons in the roster. Look out for that one, and with it being May, we should hopefully finally be seeing Wilds news in a month or two. Very excited for that, and maybe a glimpse of the real next-gen Hunting Horn. Did I get close? We'll see. Till then though, this has been another KPlays, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.